And just mute yourself until I ask you to unmute. Just mute yourself until I ask you to. Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure today to come to you live again. Rise Hairouna is here again to address the issues that the country is facing. It's such a pleasure today to come to you live again. Rise Hairouna is here again to address the issues that the country is facing. And we look forward to this discussion tonight. With us, we have Mr. Andrew Simmons, Dr. Andrew Simmons, and Troy Prince. Unfortunately, he's unable to join us via the Zoom platform, but he's here with me via telephone, so he'll join us there through that medium. And of course, I always have my counterpart, Mr. Charles Sampson, our Vice President of Rise Hairouna. So I'll just introduce myself tonight. I'm Nyla John. Some of you know me and some of you don't, but I'm president and founder of Rise Hairouna and also Loving SVG. These are two nonprofit entities. We do a lot of work surrounding human rights, constitutional rights, advocating for the rights of Vincentians. We do a lot of work on gender-based violence. We actually just came back from Toronto. We had our second awards fundraising brunch where we're raising funds to build a women's shelter in St. Vincent. And we will be having our fundraising brunch in December of 2024 in Tampa, Florida. So hopefully you guys will join us and we will make an entire, you can come down and nice and warm here in the Florida area, and you can make a vacation out of it and also be a part of something great. But I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Andrew Simmons. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Andrew, and then I will pass it over to Troy.
Thank you very much, Nyla. Let me say good afternoon to good evening after 6 to everyone. And I'm extremely happy to be part of this discussion. I hope, and we hope, it would be one that would be extremely lively and one that would make a contribution to the overall development of this country, because we are going through some very terrible periods, very terrible times in St. Vincent, Grenadines, and we basically would need every hand on deck, you know, to move this country forward. As I said, I'm Andrew Simmons. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a social development practitioner. I've been working across the globe at the Commonwealth Secretariat for about over a decade, and also with the United Nations, UNDP, UNICEF, and a number of different organizations. I started with some colleagues, the GEMS Progressive Community Organization, of which we celebrated our 45th anniversary on the 9th of September. So we're developing some excellent projects, basically working with Wake Forest University in the US, doing some research on a number of development issues that are taking place in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So here I am. I'm ready, excited, motivated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And you know, I should let the audience know that Andrew and I have never met in person, but he knows my father and my grandfather, and we came to find out recently, well, I came to find out recently that we're relatives, so it's such a pleasure to be in that family space, Andrew, and I'm so thankful that you're part of this discussion tonight. I think you'll have a valuable contribution to what we're going to discuss. And so I'm going to now turn it over to Troy Prince. He's with us via phone because he was having some difficulties logging on. So Troy, if you can hear us, and I will make sure that, if you can't hear him, please let us know, audience. And I should also let the audience know we will have a Q&A at the end of the discussion. So if you have any questions for the panelists, please put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the discussion. Troy, would you like to go ahead and just introduce yourself?
Mr. President, good one and all wherever you are. And thank you to Rise Hairouna and all the other entities that are putting together such a program like this to continue bringing the issues of St.Vincent and the Grenadines out there to the public. I mean, they are like plagues right now, and it is very important that we don't sleep on the issues that have been plaguing us for the last 2 decades or so. It's a pleasure to be invited, even though I'm a very busy man at the moment. And I must apologize for not being able to join via video. But I'm going to try my best to contribute over whichever medium I'm using right now to the best of my abilities. So thank you for inviting me once more, Nyla.
Thank you so much, Troy. It's always a pleasure to have you on this panel. You're a member of Rise Hairouna, and I recently met Troy in December when I came to St. Vincent, but him and I have had quite a friendship over the years. He's done a lot of work for his community in North Leeward. From when the volcano erupted, he does a lot of community work. I'm sure a lot of you would know who he is, even with the situation with the Richmond and Quarry. So I really want us to applaud Troy as a young man who really cares about his country and his community and the direction that his country is going. So now I will turn it over to my Vice President of Rise Hairouna, Mr. Charles Sampson.
Yeah, pleasant good afternoon. I am honored to be here on the panel where we can once again discuss issues affecting St. Vincent, but not only discuss issues, but try to come up with solutions and ideas as to how we can all contribute to making St. Vincent a better place. As my president said, I'm vice president of Rise Hairouna. Rise Hairouna is a non-profit organization that looks after the well-being and the interests of the less fortunate Vincentians, persons who don't have a voice. Rise Hairouna has always been their voice, and we've always been there to champion equality and justice throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially when it comes to women and children's rights. Hopefully we're going to have a productive discussion, and I do hope that all who choose to spend the time this evening to attend and to listening to what we have to say would leave here at least learning something or gaining some knowledge. Thank you, and hope to speak to you later on in the program.
Charles, thank you so much. Charles has been with Rise Hairouna from the inception when we first created Rise Hairouna. So it's this December is actually going to be 3 years that Rise Hairouna has been around. Loving SVG has been around for 12 years. And, Charles and I work hand in hand. Great vice president. Sometimes it gives me some trouble, but you know how that goes, right? But we're going to dive right in. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about first what is happening in Richmond, in the north of the island, the North Leeward side of the island, a very beautiful area of the country. I remember when I lived in St. Vincent for about 13 years, my father, he used to take me to that area, and I used to go swimming at the Richmond beach, and we used to go down when it was tree season. It's one of my favorite things to eat. And we would see, the tree farmers, They would be, you know, at the river mouth, and they'll be catching their treachery. And you know, I've walked that entire terrain. I've actually walked from the Richmond River all the way down up into Trinity Falls and over, and you know, it's such a spectacular place. However, when I visited St. Vincent in December of 2022, I was quite saddened by what I saw. It was if the entire place was transformed. All the farmland, all the greenery was taken away. And this spectacular mountain that I knew it to be, with all its trees and coconut trees and farmland, was just ripped up. You know, it was brown, it was dusty, it was dirty. And I took some video of it, but I was so sad to see that they have taken such a beautiful area and transformed it into this quarry. I remember some years ago, I had brought a planthologist from India, and along with some investors who wanted to do some great work in St. Vincent and wanted to push agricultural farming, organic farming in St. Vincent. And when I took them to the north side of the island, they were blown away. You know, the planthologist, he was just amazed by all of the things that he saw, all the different plants and the soil. And so it was such a sad situation to see that now it has sort of been taken away, and this mountain has been sort of, you know, dredged into, and you know, all by foreigners, right? Not by local people. And even if it was local people, I would say we shouldn't allow that, right? So I just wanted us to talk a little bit about what has been your direct, and maybe I should get Troy to speak first on this, because he comes from the area, that's his constituency, and we've seen several videos where he has you know, talked about on Facebook about the situation and what is happening. And so Troy, I'm actually going to turn it over to you for you to start this conversation off. Tell us how you feel about having this quarry in North Leeward, and tell us your experience. Tell us how the people of North Leeward feel.
In regards to this quarry, let me approach it from the angle of first, where the people of North Leeward were disrespected somewhat by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Reno. And I'm saying disrespected because of how it all unfolded. The news broke in regards to what was going to happen in Richmond. And it was all-time serpentine chance that was medium by which we became notified that Reno has already started making his which through farmlands, and that will be in farm at the moment. Destroy crops, tearing down trees, because he has been given a lease to carry on in Richmond area for 40 years, you know, and that basically brought out a lot of farmers in Leeward who at the moment were very, very much concerned about the produce that they had on the farmlands, were concerned about the manner in which the farmlands were there. And they got that, you know, and salvation was before anything like this happened. The people started by the government and the Grenadines. I was but when I phoned, I was then invited to be a member of the World Heritage Federation Front, which is the group. Well, they are still spearheading the fight against Quarry. The issue is not that restless yet with the group. We are still doing work to find ways to continue this fight. I was able to join. We joined, we did a lot of work before I left St. Vincent and the Grenadines again. We had community programs, we went out, we protest, we had meetings to sensitize the public about the issue and the concerns that we have in regards to the quarry. And one may say that it has all been in vain, because if you go to Richmond right now, like I did the last time I was in St.Vincent and the Grenadines, works are ongoing, and I'll say it may look as if they are not doing anything right now, but they are doing a lot of work based on what I saw. I had to trespass. I did 2 lives when I went. I did one live from a bird's eye view. That is where I took the road from fixed views that would give me the view from up top. And then I went all the way down onto the side and saw what they are doing. And they are doing loads of work from there. They are doing works. And it's a shame that things are ongoing and the people are still yet to know exactly how this project is going to affect them. Because one of the most important things, and maybe Mr. Simmons would come in with this agree or disagree on this, the environmental impact assessment, that is still yet to be done and presented to the people of Nadi and also St.Vincent and the Grenadines. Because with a project of this magnitude, one has to be concerned about the environment, one has to be concerned about the people, the agriculture, the fisheries division, and everything like that, because these are our livelihood in our world. And if you are going to have a project like this, of this magnitude, without even taking into consideration how are these going to be impacted, how are the people of Nadi were going to be affected, how are we going to mitigate against some of the problems that they are going to face because of this project? This is a big disrespect, and it shows that government, they just don't concern about the people of Nadi and their well-being. And for them to allow Rini to go ahead and do what he's doing and that we want it's disgraceful. I'll say that it's disgraceful. But like I said, the Heritage Preservation Front, they are still working, and I myself am trying my best to contribute from afar. I have been writing on the issue. I did live. I've had a number of radio interviews as well to keep sensitizing the public and let the people know that the quarry is still a big problem for us, because it is going to be there for 30 years, not 2, not 5, 30 years. And the work that I saw around I'll say it looks as if has Richmond in his hands. It's like it's all of Richmond. He has the free will to do whatever he wants at Richmond. No supervision from the government side. And that's just what I saw around there in Richmond. And that's crazy. It's a mess.
Thanks, Troy. We really appreciate that input. There's a couple of things that I picked up from this. And Dr. Andrew Simmons, maybe you can talk more about the environmental impact assessment that still hasn't been presented to the people, or hasn't been done, right? That's number one. Number two, Troy is telling us that operations haven't ceased. So we're aware that, I mean, everybody knows, I think everybody knows that RENU has now taken those, they've taken those lands, they have leased it out, the government has leased it out to RENU, and RENU is now farming those lands to subsidize some of his cost in that quarry. And according to Troy, it's still going, and he's still, digging and trying to find whatever he needs to find there so that he can then start his crushing and his, all the things that you do to get a quarry operating, right? To blast it or whatever you do. And this is shocking, because for me, I thought that he kind of seized and went off to, start doing some farming. But according to Troy, he's still very active, but the what blows my mind is the silence from the people. So there's only a few that are talking about this issue. We have Troy, who's coming to, he comes into the country from time to time, and he's always talking about this quarry issue. But there's an entire population in North Leeward that should be talking on this issue, and not just North Leeward, but the entire country, because it's going to affect everyone in the long run. And so, Dr. Andrew Simmons, would you like to give a little bit of perspective of your direct contact with this quarry? I'm sure you have seen the operation down there, and we would love your input on this, on the environmental impact assessment. And do you think the government has done something wrong, or do you think it should continue on, and should we put a stop to it or not?
Thank you very much. I think that both, and I tie the quarry with the dredging and with the construction of the modern port, because it is government sold the idea of the quarry to the people, stating that you'd need an amount of stones to assist with the construction of the modern port in Kingston. And a number of persons supported the view from government, not realizing of the dangerous things that would be taking place down there. For me, it is what you call a criminal act. And I've said that without any, apologies to anyone.
Dr. Andrew Simmons, why would you say it's a criminal act?
Because the government signed on to a number of UN and Commonwealth environmental and sustainable development goals and commissions and that type of thing. And so they sign on to the sustainable development goals. It basically says that if you're going to develop, that development should take place in such a way that you do not destroy the natural resource base of the community, of the country. And that natural resource base must be around for generations to come. And so for me, that is all those commissions that the government signed on to, that the government, in a sense, they went back on their words. And I'll list some of them. There's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is one of them. And we knew how dangerous climate change is. And the people in St. Vincent, normally this is supposed to be a very cool period, 28, 29, because they go into towards December. But I sat in this room in my house, the fan is on, but yet it is telling me that it's 30 degrees centigrade. Sometime during the day, earlier today, it was 32 going to 33 degrees centigrade. So what is this thing is saying, basically that, and all the research shows that as we move, every year would be hotter than the year before. Every month would be hotter than the month before because of the impact of climate change. So government also signed on to what you call the United Nations Convention on Biodiversity. Basically, what this is saying in a very simple way, that our biodiversity is our forest, it's our wildlife, it's our natural, the naturalness that you spoke about in terms of North Leeward, and that being ripped apart. The other convention that government signed on to is the United Nations Convention on Human Rights. And basically what the government is doing is violating the human rights of the people in North Leeward. What the government is doing is violating when the dredge, which we'll talk about a bit later, when the dredge on the southeast from Bayaboo right down to Brighton Salpon area, and so that includes Stubbs, even the Argyle airport that we spend about $1.2 billion, $1.5 billion. They haven't done the accounts after so long, so we don't know exactly what is the actual amount of money. But government sign on to these, and you know what we're doing, we are violating the people human rights, the rights to breathe in proper air, you know, the rights for food, and government itself talking about food security, but the government is threatening the food security of St. Vincent, because that area in North Leeward is what you call the food basket of one of the food baskets of St. Vincent. Is that area where people, there are over 100 families, and if you multiply, our families are big, so if you multiply that by 5, 6, 7, up to 10, that would give you a figure of the persons who are being impacted. So I would say, even if it's in Richmond, we are impacting the people right up to Chumuka. They've been impacted negatively. And because that area is producing so much food for St. Vincent, we're impacting the entire country. And again, because we export, you know, quite a lot of food from that area, well, used to, I would have to do some figures, you know, I would say up to $3 to $4 million per year. And these are just basically, you know, ordinary farmers, you know, going, tilling the land and that type of thing, you know. And so you can see the impact of this. These are the monies that normally would come into St. Vincent on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. And if you, you know, add that up over a year, it would give you even far more than that. But that money is not coming in anymore. These families are being displaced, so they've been pushed into poverty. So what kind of government is this? Because that's the reason why I call it a criminal act. The other thing that the government has what you call a sustainable development plan. And that plan specifies a number of guidance and measures in terms of anything that dealing with the environment, anything that dealing with quarrying and that type of thing. And the government, you know, forfeit that. You know, the other major issue that any development that takes place within an area, that you're supposed to do an environment impact assessment study. That wasn't done. You know, I remember when I fought the government tooth and nail, you know, with my class, if I could use that, you know, when they were constructing the Argyle International Airport and the cross-country road. And I forced the government, it cost the government, because they already started the construction of the airport. It cost them 1-point-something million, and I think over $500,000 for the cross-country road. And when the impact study on the airport itself told government about a number of measures that they have to put in place. If I didn't do that, and other colleagues didn't do that, maybe we would have something outside the call an airport that nobody would want to land their jets on. So what happened in North Leeward? The government, there was a study that was done, I think 2008. It was 12 years, you know, and it was done for something different. Basically, somebody wanted to take the stone from the streams, the rivers that flow down in that area, and they want to crush the stone. So what the government did, the government took that environment impact assessment study and used that as the environmental impact assessment study for this large open pit, you know, type of quarrying. And the other thing is this: an environmental study only have a lifetime of about a year and a half to 2 years. This study was done 12 years ago, 2008 at the time. And so how wicked a government can be if you say, I love my people, you are my people, I love you, labor love, and hugging people. How wicked can you be? And how dangerous can you be? You have to be a criminal to do these things, to displace all these farmers from that community to push, you know, all these people into poverty. So you can see the reason why the government is afraid. Now, the last poverty report, it still hasn't been, after so many years, it hasn't been released. And another one is due. So you can see the reason why the government has not start the other one. But that is only, you know, that is only on agriculture. What about fisheries? One of the richest area in terms of fishing is that bay, you know, from Rose Bank all the way around to Richmond. And I remember I went down there and I saw a number of boats out in the sea, taking the fishes from the fishermen, you know, and carrying them to Martinique. So if you open a quarry, what do you think would happen? All the silt, all the runoff would go straight into the river. You have, you know, one of the most beautiful, I remember when I won the Goldman Environmental Prize in 1994, there was a whole film crew that came to St. Vincent to do a documentary on my life and my work. We went down to that area and we did some, you know, for me, it was one of the most spectacular and, you know, and picturesque. And I'm talking about underwater. I'm not talking about what is there, but that entire area. So do we believe in tourism? We say that tourism is one of our major economic pillars. We say that fisheries is also one of our major economic pillars. We say that agriculture. So the three of them in one of the most picturesque and most beautiful area and serene, you know, area. And I love your description. I'm just using back your description. So the economic pillars, the three economic pillars that the government hold that and throw it back in the people's face and say, you go, you know, you want to be something, you're independent. So for me, this is, from my perception, this is criminals in terms of the action, and this is extremely wicked because we can't say that we love people. These people are Vincentians. You know, I remember when I was in the UK and I saw the guys marching and so on, and I said, no, I can't believe this thing is happening. And who the land has been given to? Not foreigners. Well, we're from the Caribbean, but still it's a foreign company, you know. And then you take the same land from these people. Government knew that there was no any stone in that area. Because to do anything that you would, if you're going to invest, that company, for me, there's something in the matter besides the pistol. Nobody can convince me that there's anything, and the same way that you can convince me that with the geothermal energy, you know, with the geothermal energy, I was not convinced that what they were doing on the northern part of the country was genuine. And we realized just before the volcanic eruption, these people took their things. Oh, what were they looking for? So I think people in St. Vincent need to ask quite a lot of questions. The same way for these Reno people, the North Leeward, because I am not convinced that is the stone, because they knew there was like an old, maybe thousands of years ago, an eruption and a lava flow passed through that area. But you must know the difference between a lava flow and stone. They know that is their area of specialization. So I believe that these guys are looking for something other than stone. You know,
right.
I'm not, and somebody would have to convince me, because I can't see why you would destroy an entire place, you know, just rip it to pieces, just rip that, the mountain range, all that, there are 3 waterfalls in that area. 3 waterfalls in that area, you know, and right. You would allow, you're pushing tourism as one of your economic pillars, and yet you would allow, you know, don't even talk about the impact on the people's health. because we know if you're going to rip an area, the wind would blow, it was straight into Chateau, straight around to Rosebank, you know, and you're talking about the asthma and the respiratory diseases that would go with that. Because I remember when they were building the airport, quite a lot of people in Stubbs were suffering from asthma and those respiratory problems. So I think government need to owe the people an explanation. Come clean and tell people exactly what and why you're doing this thing. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Troy, yes, of course, you want to give your input here?
Yes, I just want to piggyback on a couple of things that Mr. Simmons raised earlier. Well, as a youth growing up in that Leeward, I've been privileged enough to see that Leeward, what I would say at its best and now at its worst. It's like two complete extremes, if you ask me, you know? And I remember the times when the pillars that Mr. Simmons pointed out, fisheries, agriculture, tourism, they were never really maximized in regards to what they could afford not Leeward in the economy. You know, they were never maximized, the potential, they were never maximized. But what we were getting from fishing, from farming, and from tourism, it was good enough to keep not Leeward afloat. You understand? People were a lot more independent of the government in not Leeward. People were a lot more productive. People were building their houses, sending their kids to school, be out on the block having a good time. And I have witnessed all of that gone from what it was to what it is now. And that's why in one of my recent articles that I wrote, I compare not Leeward then to what it is now, and I call it a graveyard. Not Leeward is a graveyard. Histories, you cannot hear a shell blowing not Leeward on a regular basis like how back then you would hear a shell blowing not Leeward. I remember the days when I grew up in not Leeward. Whenever people like Boy, Blue, Talbot, Bunyan, and those fishermen, whenever they go out and they catch fish, sometimes the fish is so plentiful that you would have fishes lining the entire bayside for days, 4 days. That's how much fish we used to catch in that Leeward. I spent 2 months recently in St. Vincent, most of this in that Leeward, and I couldn't hear a shell for 1 day. Say that people catch fish. Farming. I remember on a Saturday, on a Friday, you could have gone almost in any village in that Leeward, and you would meet people selling potato, that's the thing, yam, the cucumber, the carrots. You don't get that in that Leeward anymore. You don't get that. People used to walk around with their lettuce and sell. You don't get that in that Leeward anymore. And tourism product has never really ever been touched and maximized. Mr. Simmons just mentioned the number of waterfalls that we have. We have so many heritage sites right there in that Leeward, up by Cherry Hill and all these other places that the government continue to fail to develop so that we could maximize our potential in that Leeward. So Mr. Simmons has started a crime, and I am agreeing. The acts that we are seeing now up on that Leeward is all of a sudden end not Leeward. This is what I'm saying. The government has made a decision to end not Leeward. This is why they send the Quarry. This is why they give Reno whatever rights he wants to do in not Leeward. This is the end of us in not Leeward. Because when he is finished tearing down that mountain, he opens up the whole of not Leeward to the hurricanes that are going to come and all the wind that is going to hit not Leeward. It's the end of us. It is the end of us. This government has made fisheries and farming. It has made it look as if these are jobs that people should not get involved in. They look down so much on agriculture and fishery that people are now, people rather go walk with somebody else in a security farm rather than going to till the soil. And that's something that I grew up knowing. I grew up meeting so many people from that Leeward, going to the farms on a daily basis, farming, going out at sea, going to catch their tree, That's exactly what I know, and that's exactly what I would love to see it returned. But the government, they have created a narrative, and they have sold this idea that fishing and farming are jobs that people shouldn't really get into, and it's the end of us in that Leeward. It may sound as if I am exaggerating, but based on what I am seeing in that Leeward, with this quarry and all the other problems that are facing us in that Leeward, this has to be the end of that Leeward based on the government approach in that Leeward.
Thanks, Troy. I agree with you. I wanted to turn this now to Charles. Charles has done we've done a lot of advocacy work for St. Vincent. Charles, why do you think the government has continued this project in Richmond, in North Leeward?
Well, Nyla, I do not know for certain, but there are some basic questions that we have to ask when it comes to any project. Now, the purpose of government is to ensure that the affairs of the people who elect them are looked after and properly managed. And when we have projects like these, we have to ask the basic questions. How do these projects benefit the community in which they are located and St. Vincent as a whole in a wider sense? And time again, we've seen projects being touted as this project would provide employment, this project would boost our economy, this project is good for St. Vincent. And when you look below the surface and really crunch the numbers, we see that these projects are more of a parasitic relationship than mutualistic or beneficial to Vincentians. And we see this in many ways. Now, it was shocking when a Minister of Parliament, the representative for North Leeward, went into Parliament and said that this project is so needed because one of his constituents needed a bathroom, and because of lack of aggregates.
Charles, could you tell us which parliamentarian said that? Minister of Government?
It is the representative Carlos James.
Okay.
And he claimed that
And he's a representative of where? North Leeward?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he won Patel Matthews by 1 vote, about half a vote, but we rung it off to the nearest whole number, 1 vote. Though that might be quite questionable, he's still the representative. So we have to ask ourselves the question. Firstly, this government has, working on behalf of the people of St. Vincent, they have a track record of not disclosing the agreements, the contractual agreements between themselves and these entities. And
Charles, I don't mean to, but I want you to, I want us to talk to our audience. And the citizens and the general public have a right to that contract, to that lease agreement, to see it, right?
Yes.
Even the one that they're having with candles right now.
The government work for the people.
That's correct.
And if I have my employees to look after the affairs of my company or my business, my employees dare not tell me that they're not going to tell me what they have been doing on my behalf, because it would then imply that they're the leader and I'm not. And if I am the owner and leader of a company, they owe it to me because they're my employees. But it seems as if the other way around in St. Vincent, where politicians feel as if they have no obligation to the citizens and to the electorate of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And time again, when these contracts do leak out to the public, we do see that it benefits our people in no way. Now, I want to bring back to the point, because we're dealing with aggregates. So I cannot really deal with anything really relating to aggregates without remembering Bigger Bigs. Bigger Bigs had one of the best block making facility in the Caribbean, made some of the best block, used to export block. Bigger Bigs business was shut down. Now this is a local man who's, you have to realize this, whatever money Bigger Bigs makes stays in St. Vincent because it's a organically grown company. It's owned by a man of the soil. So I doubt his money would be banked in America or in Italy or in Europe. It would be banked in St. Vincent, majority of it. But we would shut down Bigger Bigs business under the pretext of environmental hazard. But now we have Reno causing problems within the North Leeward. He's not being shut down. We have the dredging, which raised some environmental concern, that went ahead. Now, there's going to be times when you're going to have to balance between environmental damage and the development of the country. So I wouldn't speak on that because I'm not an environmentalist. However, what does concern me is the fact that we shut down Bigger Bigs and we're now importing blocks for projects in St. Vincent. We shut down Bigger Bigs and we don't have aggregates. But we brought in Reno for one purpose, and then he's now moved over into agriculture. Mind you, the same lands were taken from persons in that area. So we don't want the local person farming their own lands, but we have a foreigner. Now, I'm not against foreign investment, but I believe you have to look after your own. If you can't feed your household, you don't want to try feed your neighbor's children. You feed your children first. So why is it that Vincentians constantly suffer while companies from Jamaica, as in Rainforest, could come in and get all these concessions and do well in St. Vincent? You have Sandals now coming in and would have concessions again. You have Canawan, the Italians, having concession. You have Mustique, the British or whatever, having concession. But there's no way, no major company that I could point to in St. Vincent, which is owned by a Vincentian, run by a Vincentian, that we can say have concessions. And one of the things that really bothers me, St. Vincent is not a large country. We do not have vast amount of lands. We are not Africa. We are not Russia. But if you do ask that it be disclosed the amount of foreigners that own vast amounts of lands in St. Vincent, you would be surprised. We have the Canadians owning a vast amount in Montwin. We have the Italians owning almost 2/3 of Canawan. We have persons in Mustique Company owning hundreds of acres in Congo Valley and all these areas. And for some reason, Vincentians don't seem to realize that economic recolonization is taking place in our country. And very soon, we would be slaves in our own land, because we would basically be just there to provide menial labor for these rich Europeans or foreigners that our government has sold us out to, because he who pays the piper calls the tune. And that is why, for me, it is very important that we know who finances our political party, because he who pays the piper calls the tune. And we do not have that level of transparency in our country. So we don't know who's paying and who's calling the shots. But that's all I'll say on this one, because the other thing is, we were promised that these jobs would create, these contracts would create jobs in the local economy, and we've yet to see that, to see that take place. It didn't happen in Mustique, it didn't happen in Canawan, and it's definitely not going to happen in Richmond. So it's not benefiting our people. And because our government are not collecting any revenue, because they're getting all these tax breaks, it is not benefiting the country either. So who is it benefiting? Is it benefiting our politicians? Is there some sort of backhand deal that we don't know about? We have to question these things.
Right. Charles, you make some really valid points. I tell people that I'm not against foreign investment. Sometimes foreign investment is needed in a country, but I'm for foreign investment where there's an agreement that the majority of the people are employed, right? So the people, and they hold management positions. So not just, further down the chain, but they hold, the position of executives and directors and so forth and so on. And I think that there needs to be, I think people need to be more educated about the impacts of having these foreigners come in and take over the land. And, as Dr. Andrew Simmons stated, the climate change that is bringing to the country, and the impact that it's having on St. Vincent. I'll tell you this, I haven't been to St. Vincent in several years, and I decided to go to the Indian Bay beach when I was there. And I was shocked because I wondered where's the sand? Why is the water all the way up at the wall and there's no sand? And it looked totally different. And sometimes when you see something every day, you don't realize the impact that is happening. The sea levels are rising and parts of the land are being taken away. And I'm sure that people who've lived in St. Vincent for a number of years would see that certain things have just sort of disappeared. And that is part of climate change. Dr. Simmons, one of the things that I know the North Leeward Heritage Front has been championed is the fact that the land in North Leeward belongs to the Indigenous people, right? So they really have infringed on these rights of, you can't just take this land, it's Indigenous land, and just give it away pretty much. I mean, I believe the lease agreement is 99 years or something of this nature for a very minimal dollar amount, and all these duty-free concessions. Why are Vincentians not getting duty-free concessions, right? Why are Vincentians not being able to, why are they not being uplifted as entrepreneurs? So, and then we have another foreigner coming in, Sandals, and I'm going to, and I mean, Sandals is a beautiful resort. However, I remember when I went to Jamaica a few years ago, and I had gone to the Negril side of Jamaica, and I was in a boat. I was going to one of the little islands, and the guy that was driving the boat, he said, I asked him, oh, where is that place? And he said, oh, it's Sandals. Do you want to go there? And usually my question is, because I'm a very ethical person, so whenever I travel, I have to find out, I do research how they treat their workers, the reviews, I do the whole 9 yards, because I don't want to give any entity, any company, a hotel, whatever it is, my money if they're treating their people poorly, if they're not paying them correctly. And so I asked him, I said, so how do they treat the locals? And this was way before Sandals was coming to St. Vincent. And he said, do you want me to be honest? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, terrible. He said, we are treated like animals. And I told him, I don't want to go there. I will not spend my money there. They will not get my money. So if we're having a Caribbean, one of our neighbors as part of CARICOM, their workers, Sandals is there, and the workers have been treated horribly. What is going to happen to the workers in St. Vincent? And so when we start thinking, and then we have, I was told that Renew is doing the farming, he's going to be providing the produce for Sandals, and that Rainforest is going to be providing all the fish and lobster. And I've now been told that they're also providing pork and chicken and all these other things. And I thought, well, you're Rainforest, how do we get to all these different things when we have local people? Troy spoke, and Troy, I have to tell you, when I was a young girl, I came to St. Vincent when I was 5 years old, and my parents were very, very adventurous. And I used to go to North Leeward I loved that place because of what he spoke about. You hear the conch shell, and you go to the beach and you can buy fish and crayfish. Oh, I have done lots of crayfish hunting in Cumberland Mountain. And, and this is what we should be promoting. We should be promoting ecotourism. There's a lot of people that would enjoy that. I would. And so I think that we need to start educating our people and allowing them to become more aware of the issues that they're facing. Because as Troy said, this operation is still happening in North Leeward. And now the dredging, Simmons, we're going to move now to dredging. But is the dredging still happening at Argyle?
No, well, no, the dredging stopped because they already had what they want, What is very sad about both projects is that government receive a loan from, I'm not too sure in terms of the full amount. I think when it should be in the region of about $600 million. That is the loan, because the park project, the port project has a lot of different components. And so part of what was signed on, because the loan came through, part of the loan came through the Caribbean Development Bank. And what was approved is that the government built the case to get the loan, that there wasn't any sand in St. Vincent to fill that area. It's about, some people said it's about 16 acres of the entire project itself. The part that is being done by the Canadian government, they said that it's about 6.5 hectares, you know, so there are different type figures and that type of thing. But the government bill the thing that there isn't any sand in St. Vincent, the sand, the aggregate to fill in that space, and the project would bring sand in. They're close to or just over about 100 million Eastern Caribbean dollars put aside for bringing in that sand. Some people said that it was coming from somewhere some people said in Suriname, some people saying it's Barbados, but because you don't, the documents for these projects are not public, which and Samsu does make the point in terms of, you know, government for the people, of the people, you know, and these, as soon as they've been approved, should be in the public domain so that you can access them, you can read them, you can study them, and people can make their own decision, you know. So government, after the project is being approved to bring the sand in from overseas, the government, some smart person came up with an idea. Oh, there's sand between the airport area, Bayabo, down to Brighton area. So let's go and move this sand out because they're there. You know, they serve no purpose and so on. And they build the case that this entire area is dead. They said that the area is dead, there's no any life. But they didn't realize that, you know, a few years ago, in 2008, when I forced the government to do the environment impact assessment study in that area, there's a whole section talking about the life and, you know, the marine life that is in that area. They said that area is rich in fishes. There are about over 8 to 10 different species of fishes living in that area. They said that is extremely, and I'm talking from the documents, the same government documents, you know, that area is rich in lobster, is one of the main area for the spiny lobsters. So if you go into that area and you dredge, because, you know, the eggs and so on, lobsters would hatch their eggs inside that in the sand and so on. And when you dredge, everything you're pulling up, young, the lobster eggs, all type of eggs. It is also rich in terms of sponges and all type of marine living creatures, because they're being documented in 2008 in the environment impact assessment study for the Argyle International Airport. So for the government to tell such a blatant lie, to say that that thing it's a dead area, just for you to build a case, you know, it's you know, something terribly wrong. But this is the mantra that the government was pushing for, that this is a dead area. Let's go. You know, when I talk about the area it's on, you know, the Prime Minister and his guys went on radio, they laugh at me, they laugh at television, you know, like I am some fool. I grew up in that area. You understand? From a boy, I used to run away from home and go to that area. This is where I learned to swim. The guys pushed me over in a rock, and I had to, you know, always saying, kick your foot, Andrew, kick your foot, to move your hand, and you know, that's how I learned to swim. You know, so we would go from one area, from the beach into to Board Island. We call it Milligan Key. You know, we'd swim there and so on. And to that ridge, you know, if you there's so much sand in that area that sometimes, depend on if it is low tide, we walk, go all the way. And then if in the sea, because these are bays, and these bays are locked in. There's a whole sand barrier. I call it a sand barrier, and I'll explain why I call it sand barrier. From the Anglican Church at Bayaboo, that ridge from the Anglican, because the Anglican Church jut out at Bayaboo. And so there's a whole sand barrier stretch all the way down to the back of the airport, down to Stubbs Bay, Warwick Stubbs Bay, down to Diamond Bay, to the back. It passes through at the back of the small island, all the way around to Brighton Sulphur. But you know the purpose of that? You know, if you go to places, before I explain, if we go to places like Sandy Bay, Georgetown, government just spent $50 million to build wall in Georgetown, because a large section of Georgetown is gone. The same thing happened in Sandy Bay. Just some weeks ago, there's some young lady, Baptiste and some others, you know, where I work with. I went up to Sandy Bay and explained and showed to them, you know, where we, as a young man, used to go to play football, to play cricket. And then when we come back, there's a place named Hog Hole, something like that, where like a disco. And so you would stay there. All that part of Sandy Bay is missing, you know, already been claimed by the sea. So what you see in the northeast of St. Vincent is not happening in the southeast. So from Bayaboo down is intact. Why Bayaboo down is intact is because of that sand barrier that runs all the way from the Anglican Church in Bayaboo right down to Brighton Sulphur. And why is that important? Because that area is being exposed by the Atlantic Oceans. But with that sand barrier, the sea would come in. If you are standing during the hurricanes or some of the worst periods in terms of storms, and you're standing up Victoria Village, called Ridge, and those areas, you would see the swell would come in, rush, and then it would struck something, the water would go up in the air, and then it would trickle out. And so what the government did, they were tricked. You know, they didn't go to because one of the things when you're doing research, I'm a researcher, you must go and you talk to the people. So the people would tell you about the experiences, they would give you the history and all those things. So they didn't talk to the people. What they did, they sent, because they were doing this thing undercover, and they were trying to make sure that nobody report them to the Caribbean Development Bank or what. They brought in, somebody would call me, oh, we saw something like a tug, those small boats, and the boats would go up. So what they were doing what you call bathymetric studies, in terms of trying to look at the contour, look at take out photos from the underwater to see, you know, how it looked down there, not realizing that the sand that is there, that you think is sand, that is the sand that is the barrier that would stop the sea, the Atlantic Ocean from coming in. So people living from Bayaboo right down to Brighton, they, for the next 10 to 15 years, they would have to hold their breath and hoping that, that there isn't any major storms, because that protective barrier that is there, it completely, we're being sucked out to build the port in Kingston. So again, that is the reason I call it criminal, because here, what you're doing, you're exposing over 25,000 people, their lives, their children, their families, and so on. All these beautiful houses that these people work so hard, mortgage, to build, all that is being exposed. And then in the southern Grenadines, we have two major development. I use the word development. We have the Kickham Jenny and the Kickham Jim. I hope those are the proper name. These underwater volcanoes. And one of them is about 2 more eruptions, and you can get the tsunamis, the tidal waves that normally that a volcano would get, like something similar to what happened 2004, 2005 in Sri Lanka and that part of the world. So people are being exposed. And how can a government who say that they love, I love you, labor love, how can a government do such a thing? Even the airport that was built, which is the largest, and most expensive project that built by our government using our money, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren would have to pay these loans, part of the guild mentality. I leave a guild in Vincentian, so the airport itself is being threatened, because if you move that barrier, it means that you expose the entire airport. There isn't nothing there to stop, because what was there to stop the sea from coming in is no longer there. So these are some of the the wickedness that this government is doing to the people, and all because of the dredging. But the other thing that I expose is somewhere there's an $80 million, $80 million that is either unaccounted for, or people, there's some hush-hush putting into that $80 million. And let me tell you why. To bring in the sand would cost just around or over $100 million. And I think I knew for sure there were about 32 million. I'd have to double check whether it is pounds or whether it's US dollars, but that came from the British government. And the others would go, that was grant in terms of the first phase of the project. The others would be in loan from the Caribbean Development Bank, loans from a number of different partners, and grants from a number of different partners. And the Prime Minister said he would get back $20 million. So if I pay you $100 million, and you pay me back 20 million. I provide you with the stuff that you want. You pay me $20 million, and this is the money that he said that he will give to fishermen and that type of thing. Where there should be a gap, not so? There should be a gap of about 80 something million dollars. So where is that money? Who have control of that money? And for me, these are questions that people need to ask. And it's the same thing, that there's a fear, there's a serious fear in St. Vincent. I know sometimes I go and I stand talking to people, and then when I look around, the person disappear. And then they would come back and say, I saw somebody, it's a ULP support, and they go carry my name. But these are some, so there's a serious fear in this country. And I know Troy, talking about the same thing in South Leeward, that it is the fear that, and I don't know, I don't understand. I'm a community organizer. I've been involved in community development work we're still doing work in GEMS, some serious amount of work going from one community on the southeast of St. Vincent, talking to people, mobilizing people and so on. But there's a serious fear in this country. So people would not come out to take part in anything. I remember we were having we brought in a group of 9 students and 4 professors from a private, prominent university in the US. And we're hoping that the people would come out and they would mix with these people, and because the intention was to get some scholarships, not to, because I don't believe in sending our people to any 4th-rate universities, like what is happening now, this Bantu type of education, where when the people, they go out, they study, they come back with this degree, and the degree even good for them to stand up on. I wouldn't say what I want, but you know what people know what I'm saying. Because the degrees, a number of them, when they go to these places, whether in Taiwan, whether in Cuba, whether somewhere in Latin America, and they come back to St. Vincent, they can't go. They want to further their education, but nobody would not accept them. No proper recognized university would accept them because the degrees that they receive is no good. And this is what, our people, we have a whole lot of people with degrees, but the degrees doesn't make any sense. So I brought these people in, they're using my books at the university, even Penn State University. My books are on the catalog and so on. And my books are being used all over the world, in terms of when you're dealing with environment and development and sustainability and that type of thing. I brought these 4 professors, 2 of them are from St. Vincent, so I was so proud, and when we thought that we had it, I'd say it in Stubbs, of all places, so I said the young people would come, they would, mix with the students, they would teach them how to play pans and so on, and it didn't happen because somebody telling them, oh, what Andrew doing and is for politics, because
yeah, Andrew, I think that there's a serious element of fear. We have experienced it, but we were quite successful some years ago, right, Charles, when we got all those people together to protest the government, and it kept growing and growing during the time of Mr. John. And I will, every panel discussion, I will bring him up because it is very important that we do not forget that Mr. John accused a sitting senator, Ashel Morgan, along with the deputy director is still the deputy director, the deputy public prosecutor, Karen Nelson, of shooting him. And we have Ashel Morgan that admit that she called the prime minister after the incident had occurred. And so, there is this serious element of fear that, there is no rule of law in the country, Andrew. So a lot of people are very fearful, but Vincentians need to come out of the slumber because, one, we see the direction that the country is going. Climate change is real in St. Vincent. We see that the country has been sold out to investors. It's unfortunate that Troy is a young man and he's seen how his constituency is just falling apart. I don't know why St. Vincent needs another port. They can't even manage the ports that they have right now. They lack security. There's a lack of citizen security in the country. And I know that we can go on and talk about all the issues, but I really want to turn this conversation now to the crime that's happening in St. Vincent, the number of murders, and the fact that the government is, I think they know what they're supposed to do, but there's an element of pretending to be quite clueless. I tell people that I have a degree in sociology and criminology with, criminal justice and a law degree. And so if they would want some advice that is just a free advice, I do a lot of work that's pro bono. I'm more than willing to sit on a panel, you know, and on a board to say, hey, listen, this is how you address the problem. And so I know today, unfortunately, you guys have surpassed your record of last year, where a man in the constituency of where Charles is from, is that correct, Charles?
South Central Windward.
South Central
Windward.
Yes, South Central Windward, where an elderly man was killed this morning. I got the news quite early this morning that he was killed. And so, St. Vincent, you have once again broken your record, your murder record. And, you know, Charles, as since it's your constituency, you know, I just wanted you to start off, you know, let us turn this conversation now to the incline over the years in murders and, you know, it's violent crime, very violent crime. And people say, oh, we don't have an issue. It's gang related, right? I'm sure that guy wasn't in a gang. And I'm sure the lady that they killed up in Dorsetshire Hill, brutally murdered her. There was blood. I mean, I don't mean to be graphic, blood all over that home. I'm sure she wasn't in a gang. So we have a serious problem. And I'm going to say this before you jump in, Charles, that Vincentians, your government has failed you. You do not have citizen security. And citizen security is critical for the direction, for the development of your country, because it is now going to put people into fear. They don't want to come out of their houses. Tourists are going to be on the alert. I'm a Canadian born, and whenever I leave wherever I'm going, I register, and usually I get an alert that if you're entering St. Vincent, there isn't proper health care, so make sure that you have that, and that you need to be cognizant of the crime committed against tourists and locals. Recently, I think it was last week, a yacht in the Bucama Bay area was robbed. They were held at gunpoint. The wife, they stole her wedding ring, and I think it was $1,000 euros. So we're talking about tourism and sandals and all these things, and you know, I tell people that nobody's lives is worth more than the other. When a Cuban was shot, right, Charles, recently, and I think somebody's vehicle got burned in Georgetown, another Cuban, the Prime Minister of the country came out and spoke profoundly on these issues. But it seems as if the lives of Vincentians are not worth anything, like what we're seeing now in our world between, you know, Israel and Palestine, right? Do we start, and this is one of the problems that we have politicians that have their interest at heart and not the interests of the people. So Charles, I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's start the conversation on crime in the country.
Well, it's unfortunate, Nyla, that over the last decade or so, and even beyond, St. Vincent have been leading among the top nations, but for all of the wrong reasons. And even if the powers that be wants to dismiss murders as gang-related, which majority of them are gang-related, not all, are we going to say that the rape culture is also gang-related? That the young ladies and children that have been sexually molested in our society are gang-related? Obviously, we cannot say that.
Or Charles, they might say that the women deserve it because, you know, they're showing their bosom or whatever. They have to, you know, dress with decency. And I'm not saying a woman should dress with decency.
Nyla, while I do agree.
Why do we rape our women?
Why I do agree that our women should dress in a more modest way. I do think that women should respect themselves. There's no reason, there's no justification for rape or molestation of our children. And
that's correct.
We also have a big issue with parental larceny. For those who don't know, where farmers are losing their animals and their produce and etc. with burglaries. Are we going to blame all that on on gang violence? No, we can't. Now, a couple, well, in the early 2000s, the Prime Minister made a famous speech, which a lot of people are bringing back to haunt the Prime Minister, where he said, crime has to be laid squarely at the feet of the then Prime Minister, the late Sir James, and Commissioner of Police Randolph Toucey. While it might have been politically expedient for him to make such a statement, now he's in the hot seat. We hear that crime now has to deal with high maintenance women and gangs and all other sorts. We know that's not the case. Crime really has to do with self-worth. If you as a young person feels that you have a future, a bright future, you have the possibility of achieving, you're less likely to commit crime. When you're in a situation where the economy is such that you don't see a way out of desperation comes desperate measures. I'm not saying this to justify persons going around and stealing and committing crime. But what I'm saying is that if you give people a way out, they're likely to take that way out. Rather, nobody wants to commit crime. Nobody really wants to end up in prison. Nobody wants to be killed in gang violence. It is natural instinct to want to live. But when we have a system where our young people can't see a way out, they end up turning to violence. What is the solution? I would not blame the police, because I see when it comes to that point, it's reactive. As a nation, we need to take a proactive approach. And when I say take a proactive approach, it has to be a holistic approach in terms of changing the mindset of our people. The church have to play their role. The schools have to play their role. The home have to play their role. Every aspect of our society have to do their part. And it is not going to be a quick fix, because we didn't get here overnight. It was due to systematic changes and governmental policies and adapting certain, whether you want to call it Western or modern values, why we are in the position that we're in. So we understand that we're in a bad position. We need to come up with solutions. What do I suggest? I suggest, firstly, that we change the mindset of our young people. And we can only do that by changing the curriculum. When I was growing up, Nyla, if an incident took place in school, the teacher called both parties, and one body is wrong, one person get lashes or both persons get lashes, and you go. That has not, to the children, you have not explained what they've done wrong. You've not given them an alternative that when they're in that situation again, how. So what we need is to implement ADR within our education system. What's ADR? Alternative dispute resolution. We need to be able to not only discipline our children in schools, but the teachers need to put these kids sit down and say, look, you're both from the same community. You're your brother's keeper. If this happens, this is how you deal with it. This is where you went wrong. In the future, I'd like you to do it this way rather than that way. Let the children understand where they're going wrong. The church has to play their role. Murders are happening. As a matter of fact, the most recent murder, apparently this man was coming from a crusade. Murders are happening to persons even within the church, but yet our church is silent. The only time we seem to be able to get the churches out on the street is when it has something to do with homosexuality. Is that the only sin? It seems as if anything else, injustice, inequality, oppression, anything else happening in the country, the church seems to have lost their voice. The church has a very important role to play in saving St. Vincent from the sudden destruction that we're heading towards. So the church has to play their part. Also, the home. Because of all the promiscuity and everything that is going through our society unchecked, we have broken homes, lack of fathers in the household, children making children because of this whole rape culture and molestation, and not these young mothers not being equipped in a way that they could really impart the right training onto their children. And again, that goes back to the age of consent and really addressing changing our laws to protect our young women and young men. You cannot tell me that a 15-year-old could give consent to having a child, but that 15-year-old cannot work, cannot vote, cannot do anything to support that child, cannot even own a land, cannot own a house to put that child in. But you're telling me that you're giving a 15-year-old the right to make a decision that could destroy their entire future. We have to be more serious if we're going to save St. Vincent. We have to be more proactive, and it has to be a holistic approach. It has to be significant change in government policies. When by the time it comes where you have to use your correctional facilities, police and prison, it is too late. It is far too late. So, Naila, this issue of crime in St. Vincent is a very, very important one. But we have to have a national consensus where we have consultations, and we have to include members of the cloth, we have to include teachers, persons of civic society. Everybody has got to come together and play their part in saving St. Vincent. Because I tell you what, giving police guns ain't going to solve the problem. Citizens arming themselves are not going to solve the problem. The only way the problem is going to be solved is by coming together and coming up with a national plan to deal with crime and really start to just reshape our society as a whole. Politics have divided us. So many things have divided us. We need national unity in tackling crime. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to become prisoners in our own home. Because I don't really believe in the idea of having burglar bars. It's as if you're turning your home in a prison. But many people don't have the option. They just have to do it because of the crime situation.
Well, Charles, you make some very valid points. I'll touch a little bit on the burglar bar as well. I've seen that, every time I turn on the radio station, there's security people, like security cameras now. So your front door, doorbell, you have securities around, and people have dogs and different things to secure their homes. I remember when I first visited Jamaica, I was shocked because people even had like armed guards at their houses, in Kingston. And I said, this is quite crazy. But I'll tell you this, St. Vincent is a very small population, and it is very, very unfortunate what is happening. And crime is multifaceted. It isn't, you can't look at it, down a black, it's not black and white. And as you said, this needs to be a holistic approach. So everybody needs to get involved to address this, from educating our youth to the community, to the religious bodies, and to the government. And as you said, once we start getting to the point of just arming our police and putting people in prison, we've gone too far. I will say that
Naila, members in the chat are not being able to ask questions, post questions.
Right. I was actually going to say, it seems like there's something going on with the chat. So what I'm going to do is, once we're done here, you can raise your hand. Please find out if they can raise their hand, and I will let them actually speak, ask their question to the panel, and we will have the panel answered. I think that would be great, instead of typing it in the chat. So all you need to do is raise your hand. I will unmute you, and then you can ask your question when we're done this. And it is back to one of the things that we're doing as a nonprofit under Rise Hairouna and Love and SVG. We, before the year is out, we will actually be sending the petition. We've been we've circulated the petition for a number of years, and we have quite a bit of signatures, and we will petition in the government for a sex offenders registry. We have listened to the people, and we will be writing a proposal to the government. The country needs a sex offenders registry, and not just a sex offenders registry, but a sex offenders registry with a program to complement that registry. Very, very important. And that program will start within the schools. So we start educating our people. We start, getting into the communities. We want we want a whole entire program that surrounds from the beginning to the end. Yes, unfortunately, there's just some pedophiles in our society, and you have to do what you need to do. The law needs to step in and say, okay, you've done something wrong and you have to serve some time. But while they're serving time, they need to be in a program, right? And I think that it's about time that this is done. And even the age of consent, it should never be 15 years old. Never, ever, ever. So Charles and I are always on the same page with this, but I'm going to let Troy come in. He's the younger one of us all. And, I want him to give a perspective of, what's happening with our youth. What is happening with our youth in St. Vincent? Why is there so much gun violence? Why is there so many people involved in drugs? So Troy, I'm gonna hand it over back to you, and then we'll go to Andrew Simmons, and then we'll open up for questions. And people, if you're on Facebook, please put your question in the chat. Charles will go in and take a look, and I will monitor the hand raising on Zoom, and we would allow you to speak and ask your question to the panel. Go ahead, Troy.
And situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I feel so ashamed because in my nature of work, where I get to meet thousands of people from all over the world each week, and one of the main things that I do as a Vincentian worker out here in America is that I sell my country to the people out here. You understand? And when I do that, and people actually do go and they Google St. Vincent and the Grenadines, sometimes I feel so ashamed because of some of the headlines that I know that they are going to see. And they do come back and they do say that, hey, Troy, your island is very beautiful. I Google pictures of things that you're talking about. But I know at the same time they are saying that this is the situation in regards to crime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because ain't nobody gonna leave where they are from into a country without doing research in regards to how safe it is. And you spoke earlier about when you travel, you get your alerts in regards to what to look out for and what not to look out for. And I would love to believe that it's the same thing with these forces that I tell my country to out there. As a young person, Nyla, it's very, very frightening for me to be living in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Even the fact that we have been breaking crime records for years now. And it's just sad that we have surpassed the record from last year, and the year isn't even out just yet. Are we ever gonna be able to stop crime? Not more. Because there are so many areas in society that people, of course, are going to be frustrated. People don't know how to deal with the anger, the frustration, so they find ways to get it out, and sometimes it leads to them committing crime. And it's not just homicide. I spoke about racial larceny, we have burglary, we have all these other petty crimes that of course need to be looked into as well. But as a young man, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the reasons for crime, I'm going to point my finger at a number of them. And the first one I'm going to start with is we have seen how our leaders, the ones who we have given charge of our country, we have seen how they choose to behave in the House of Parliament as examples to the youth who are looking on as role model, who are looking onto these bosses as role model. We have heard the back and forth in Parliament, the name calling, the You know what I'm talking about, right? And I just think that these are bad examples that we have been setting, especially from the Prime Minister, where he has continued to keep the members of the NDP at malice because of the unfortunate bus head that he got, where he keeps reiterating that he doesn't want to speak with the opposition side on crime. He doesn't want to speak with Dr. Friday because Dr. Friday keep encouraging his supporters to do this. And he is just not showing people that they need to be forgiven. And if you are the Prime Minister of the country and this is how you are, how do you expect the citizens, the ordinary man, to want to forgive each other when they get into disputes? I'm saying our leaders need to look into themselves when it comes to fighting crime and ask themselves, are we setting the examples that we should be setting for the youth? Because I am a youth, I'm looking on, when I'm looking on like the ones that we give the charge to manage our country. And when I look at them, I'm like, these are bad examples. I don't want to be following these types of examples. You understand? Another reason I'm going to say why people are so comfortable to commit crimes in St.Vincent and the Grenadines is the lack of convictions. Over the years, one could talk maybe under two hands the number of persons who got convicted for a crime. People may be looking at the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines or the coast and say, hey, I could do this if I do this properly because of the lack of equipment and other material and so on in regards to the police force and the ability to fight crimes, I may be able to get off. And that has been happening. The lack of convictions, that's another big contributor to crimes in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It breeds confidence in the criminals that they can do things and get off once they do it properly. Another one I'm going to point my finger is the poor and unprofessional policing. I've seen it. I've seen policemen breaking the laws, like literally driving and drinking, literally driving and texting, you know, doing things that this should be appalling, doing things that they should be appalling the wrong way. And when the local man again is to look at a police officer and say, okay, if he's a police officer and he could be driving and drinking again, why can't I do the same thing? And what that does, as a police officer, once you are seen acting in such a manner, it evaluates how important you are as a police officer to the local man, because you always going to put that in a face and say, but I saw you doing this, why can't I do it? And now you want to come along. Police, I think our police officers need to be a lot more professional in terms of how they go about policing and how they carry themselves out there for the public to see that they are police officers who are meant to be upholding the law. Another one I'm going to put my finger to is the unemployment levels in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially amongst the youth. I'm a teacher, I'm a former teacher. I have watched the dropout rates of school increase. I've seen it drastically increase almost every year. And that is a big contributor to crime, because they drop out of secondary school, some of them as early as Form 1. Some of them go all the way up to Form 5 and decide that they're not going to come back. And what? When they drop out, there are no alternatives for them to fall back on. They understand what they do? They report to the blocks, they go to the hills, and that, of course, causes them to get themselves involved in crime. So we have to look at the unemployment situation in the country and try to fix that. And the laws of the country as well. If the laws of the country are there, and when people commit these crimes, sometimes we laugh at some of the penalties that are dished out to these people. Over and over, you will hear the radio station saying, okay, this penalty wasn't enough, that penalty wasn't enough, this person should have done it more. There need to be basic of the laws of the countries. I think recently one country just made their laws much more stricter when it comes to fighting gun crimes. I can't remember which Caribbean country it is, but that country has taken a bold step. And
That would be Jamaica, Troy.
Yeah. Right. I would love to see things like that being done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We need something to let these criminals know that, hey, yes, you can go out there and get yourself involved in crime, but the chances of you getting away is low. But that's not the situation right now. The criminals are saying I can do this, do it properly, and I can get away. I'm asking the questions, why are our citizens so comfortable when it comes to within that? These are some of the reasons why. Understand? In regards to solutions, as I said, young people need to be meaningfully and gainfully employed. They have to find ways to help the school dropouts. They have to find ways to get them back into the system of schooling, whether it is to learn a skill, just have these people meaningfully and gainfully employed. That way they don't go off because, you know, they saying the devil find work for idle hands to do. And if you just need to be on the block, smoking, drinking, getting high, they are going to be miserable and they are going to want to do things to make money. Another solution I'm going to say is that, and I'm going to be more about this, we need to review our so-called education revolution. That thing has to be reviewed.
I agree.
As a former teacher, it has to be reviewed. Has it really been revolutionary for the better or for the worse? I don't know. I've seen schooling gone from kids achieving, maximizing their time in school to kids just going to school now because some of them they can't stay at home. The parents say you have to go to school. They just come to school for the sake of coming to school, but not with the intention to really, really learn. For me, with education, who are supposed to learn will learn. Everybody's gonna get it. But in my time, as a going to school, we had motivation and we had ambition. A lot of that is no more. A lot of that is no more. So we need to revisit our so-called education revolution, see how it has the country in regards to the number of persons who leave school with a qualification that would help them to get a job. That has to be revisited as opposed to the number of persons who drop out along the way and now have nothing to do but beyond the block. The police, they need to realize that they promise to serve and protect all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and not just a selected few. How many times you see the police being partial in terms of how they want to apply the rule of law? That cannot be happening in our country. You can't pick out for relatives and handle the situation with your relatives and you know you would handle with someone who is not your relative. The laws of the country are there. The police, whenever they do get in, they swear to protect and serve the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and not just their family. This is a big issue. Police officers need to be a lot more professional when it comes to doing their jobs. And the thing that we need to do now, we have to get rid of all the nepotism that we are seeing in public offices. This frustrates people. If I choose to attend school for 5 years, get my qualifications, and I am watching someone, because now Prime Minister St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and she has a nephew who may not even be as qualified I am, but because this is your nephew, he gets a job. That frustrates people as well. Nepotism, that's a big issue that we have to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. People are turning a blind eye to it. And we need to call these things out because it gets people upset, it gets people frustrated, and this of course could cause people to go and do things that they don't want to do. Again, I'm with Chris that I've said earlier about, and parents definitely need to step their game up. I've seen schools move from where the parents were actually parents to now where the kids are actually the parents. There are homes where the kids are the ones who are going out to be the breadwinners. We can't be having this. I know that the country is in a dire state in regards to the work. I know that our poverty level, it has been over the years, but still, parents cannot just keep giving up this easily on their kids. We cannot educate to become the parents at a tender age. That is going to breed them, and we are only going to have more kids out there on the streets who are going to get themselves involved in crimes. I'm saying that to Nyla, it's sad that our country, we are breaking records when it comes to crime, but we have to look into all these things and the best solutions possibly. And it's not, I mean, it's you as an individual, whether or not you want to get yourself involved in leaders or prime minister, the opposition leader, the ones who we look to when it comes to making decisions and set the policies of everything would help us to be safe in St.Vincent and the Grenadines. And if we can't set the examples that the youth will follow, then St.Vincent would be in the situation that it will be and see what can be better.
Troy, thank you for your input. You know, well thought of. Some of the things that I pulled from Troy, I know some people are having difficulty hearing him, but he spoke of nepotism and the rule of law, proper training for police, revision of sentencing. This is something that Charles and I have looked at over and over. The sentencing, and you hear it on the radio all the time, right? Community involvement. There needs to be community involvement. Proper parenting. This is a serious, Charles spoke about that. Half of the fathers they're nowhere to be found, right? And so I always tell people say I'm old-fashioned, but I'm a strong proponent of healthy marriages, because healthy marriages create a better society. There's a father involved and the mother, brother, and hear me, I said healthy marriages. So I'm not telling people to stay in marriages where you're being abused or raped or whatever it is. I'm speaking of healthy marriages. And if your marriage can't work, divorce, but still be a father, still be there for your children, right? Be there for mothers, be there for your children. Stop going out to parties and leaving your kids at home with strangers, and these strangers molest your children, right? You see, teenage pregnancy is one of the biggest problems in St. Vincent. So it's a very vicious cycle. A lot of people are not being, you know, education. Andrew Simmons spoke about education and proper education. And then the unemployment and the fact that, you know, he said if the prime minister knows you or whatever, then you get a position or you're a relative. It cannot work that way. The country is in a brain drain right now. So all of the people that can contribute to the development, except Andrew Simmons, he's in St. Vincent and he's going to do some wonderful things. But the contribution, you know, the development of the country, you need young people to help to develop your country. You need people who understand what it is to develop a country. And I'm going to say this, and I will say this again. If we do not address the social ills in a nation, it will fail. And so, Andrew Simmons, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we're going to the question period, and then we'll close out. But audience, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat or put it on the Facebook chat. If you're in Zoom, put it on the chat here, or if you want to speak directly to the panel, put your hand up, and we will have you come in.
Thank you very much. Let me go to a bit of philosophy. There's a development philosopher whose name is Gant. And what he's saying that when you see these things that we are talking about, when you see them in a society, it means that that society been decaying 10, 15, 20, 25 years before. You know, and so there's a tendency, and I think there's a tendency in St. Vincent for us to react to something. And what is saying, no, you don't react to it. What you have to do the deep-rooted analysis to find out what are the root causes. It's like, you know, you're seeing some boils coming out on your hand and you put on a plaster. And by the time that boil disappear, there may be another one, and you put on plasters. And we have a tendency in St. Vincent to deal with everything with plasters. We react to things. We try and is like a quick fix approach, an instant coffee approach, Kentucky Fried Chicken approach. We want to see things happening, you know, overnight. But as I said, Gant said that when you see these ills in your society, that society start decaying 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the solutions that you're looking at, you have to do the deep-rooted analysis. You have to bring the people together. And I think that's been coming out over and over in our discussion. You have to bring the people who are care, And policing can't solve that, because policing in terms of dealing with crime is just about 10 to 15% in terms of the solutions. So some people call in England, they talk about, and Samson, the joint up approach or the public health approach, where you bring all the players together, including the young people, because what usually happens, we bring everybody else except the young people, or except the persons who are being perpetrators and those who are being victims. So we sit around a desk, we talk among ourselves, and we come up with solutions. And it can't work, because if we don't bring the persons who matter, if we don't work with these persons. So we have to find these persons, where go out into the communities, talk to them, you know, and this is some of the work that we're doing in GEMS, you know, find people. If there's an environmental issues, we talk, we get them to come up with the solutions. If there's a social development issue, we do the same thing. If there's an employment issue, because people know, I think one of the thing, you know, being much older than a number of persons, and because you learn from the experiences. And I remember when in our teens, we were young teachers, there were some issues in the community, and what we did, we were trying to solve, but it can't work. So it was when we went into these people, we sat with them, we talked to them, they start to tell us how to solve this thing, you know. They start to tell us, you know, something, I don't have enough education, I can't help me pick me them, you know, I need some help. So that's how we started the literacy program. That's how we started the skills training program. And it's so people, and we encourage them to come. People participated in those programs. They became masons, carpenters, electricians. Some of them we send them overseas for additional training. And so it was all these experiences that I took to the Commonwealth Secretariat, and I've been working. I took these experiences. In fact, the last work in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is a place, what we have here, you know, about murders, like joke. Some 10, 15 years ago, Sierra Leone, 20 years ago, passed through a very bloody civil war, where over 500,000, the figures fluctuate from whosoever you're speaking, were killed, you know. But working with these persons, the governments, we brought everybody together. I spent, it was from 2012, I've been in Sierra Leone working, you know, working with the people. And my last assignment in 2018 to 2020, you know, where we focus on postgraduate students. We wrote the curriculum, work with government, you know, we develop the skills sector, we include, you know, we prepare people for the future, because now you can't train somebody to a carpenter or mason. You have to look at, you know, way down. So we call it sustainable construction, you know, new curriculum. We brought carpentry, masonry, and fabrication, prefabrications in terms of building windows and that type of thing. And we taught people how to design the new set of buildings and houses, you know, so that, you know, the air would flow through, you know, because it would be much hotter. Also in the whole area in terms of tourism and ecotourism and so on, we call it sustainable hospitalities. So we work with them. It's a complete new program, you know, in terms, because we knew these places would be hotter, the Caribbean, Africa. When people come to these countries, you know, you have the buildings that you have, the air conditioners and so on. People may not want that, you know. So some countries going into, they're putting up what they call eco lodge, thatch houses, you know, nice, you know, and fully furnished and you know, those type of things. In terms of agriculture, we look at is a whole complete sustainable agriculture, sustainable aquaculture in terms of fisheries and so on, because we knew that very soon and which is happening in St. Vincent, that the guys them going down by the rocks or in the bays trying to fish, but there's no any fish. Why? Because the fishes, the water is so hot, so the fishes go further out. So they can't get them, so we had to look at things in terms of how do we grow, produce fishes inland, So these are, and then we take it even further in terms of how do you preserve that? How do you package that? And so it's a whole new type of education and learning that is completely sad. And Samson referred to the education revolution. It is not an education revolution, education depletion, because you have, for every 100 children who start school, secondary school in St. Vincent, less than 30 of them complete. So what is that? What happened to the next 70? Are they on the street? Are they in the gap, in the gangs? Are they, using drugs? Where are they? They disappear. And then it is when some murder take place at the time we would find them, or when they find us. So we have to look at a complete different approach in terms of dealing with the development of this country. But most importantly, let me just end this thing, that and 2 weeks ago, I made a point that both political parties hustling to get the votes of young people. But the sad thing of them, they don't have the competencies. We don't have people who are skilled, with the skills, who are fully trained in terms of working with young people. Even within the school system, because the type of education that the children, especially teenagers, we have to teach. There's a special type of approach, and you have to understand young people. Young people, we look at young people and we believe that anybody can work with young people. Why? If you want to be a lawyer, you have to go and train, that's all. If you want to go into another profession, you have to go and train, but we believe that anybody we pick somebody up, we put them some crash courses, and we make them into a social worker. These are the things that happen here. And so that they need to be a complete retrain, because they're talking about there's what you call a different approach. It's not age. You see young people between 15 to 16 to under 29. That's the Commonwealth, and the UN would say between 16 to under 20 to under 25. No, it's more than that. We call about a life cycle approach, and where that young person moves from being dependent to being independent. And there are a whole heap of different stages, and you have to be able to know where these persons are, and so that when your interventions would be tailored for meet these young people. So I think there are quite a lot of things that need to be done. I know that comment when I do the Facebook page, some people were upset because they think that I was trying to hit politics, but I'm a professional. I'm concerned about your politics. I'm a professional, and it's my responsibility as a Vincentian, because I believe who I am. It was because of a whole lot of people in the village who come give me food, who give this, who buy a shoe, who, they help me to be what I am today. So Andrew Simmons is, Dr. Andrew Simmons didn't, because, Dr. Andrew Simmons was created by the community itself, because it's a community who served me. I know many times I was in primary school, I ran away a few times. These are the people who give me, who call me and talk to me and so on. Well, my mother break up a few belts on me, and but I'm not saying that we have to abuse them, our young people, but because our young people, if we make these interventions when it is timely, and to make these interventions, you have to be trained. I am considering running I'm running a whole series of workshops now in terms of project writing. The next one would be at the Venezuelan Institute next first Saturday in November, So it's a whole series of training, but I'm also looking at running maybe through GEMS a series of training in terms of youth development, understanding youth and working with youth, you know, because other than that, because we already lose a generation. We have to pull this country together. This is our country. I told people I don't have any place else to live. My mother would be 89 next week, the day before the 26th. You know, I don't want to be in another man's country, another place. I want to be home here, working with our people, giving back to our people. So I just want to, you know, I know people there waiting, Naila. So let me shut my mouth.
Yes, we do have some people waiting, and
Yeah.
you know, Andrew, I'm happy that you I hold the same position as you, that our politicians work for us. We pay them, right? We pay them to govern. Charles made the statement also, and they need to start being an example, and we need to start holding them accountable. And when we're upset, but whether it's government, the government or the opposition, we need to state that. We do have with us, it looks as if Vincent Benjamin, he would like to ask a question. So I'm going to allow him to now speak to the panel and ask his question. Vincent, can you hear us?
Surely I'm hearing you. I don't know if you're hearing me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
We're hearing you.
Yes. So go ahead and ask your question.
Well,
thank you for being part of this.
I don't know if it might more be like a statement or two. Let me just say, I have had the privilege of working along with Dr. Simmons, even in my teens, and part of GEMS and all of that. But I'm going to look at some of the issues that was mentioned. I think he mentioned something about the empowerment of people and the way you identify problems and don't just try to solve the what I say, put on plaster. And so you're looking at instead of the look at the root problem rather than the symptoms. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
it's very important that we solve the problem rather than just dealing with the symptoms. The economic part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the past couple of decades. I've been in St. Vincent for over 5 decades. And when we look at the strategy for development, I think that is one of the things that have a spillover effect on social problems and so forth, or the lack thereof, of a proper economic pathway. I remember, for example, there was a situation in the country where you empower people to better themselves. Everybody does his or her own development in terms of building house. Once the proper economic environment and the social services are at work, people can get together in communities and build their houses without any loans or any attachments being done, and without any grandstanding by any politician. Now, what happens is that we feel that if we are a politician or we are in government, we're supposed to build all the houses and leave them just edifice to say we did this or we did that. But if we empower the people, for example, make the cement and lumber and aggregate affordable at a particular control or even subsidized rate, people can build themselves and also learn the skill of building also while they do their own thing. What we do, or what was done in the past, is that the social services provide the cushion under which this could have been done by the people. Now we have okay, people can sit back and this can happen, but at the same time, the long-term effect of that is negative. For example, if you got to build a house, you got to pay a loan and pay 4 times the amount in 20 years or 25 years. It doesn't make much sense. So I think the economic development path of the country need to be looked at seriously. The right entrepreneurial environment need to be provided so that people can, have business. Because what's happening now is that you have some people who are so dependent on government that they can't do anything, and that is important for even the crime we're talking about. If people cannot see a pathway by which they can help themselves and provide proper, economic sustenance for the family, that will be a problem. And we got to look at that and don't think that 15 or so politicians can solve all the problem for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and continue to beg. And, and we talk about the different classes of society being eroded. And that is important. Well, that area need to be developed because most of the people who go to the shop and buy the things are the middle class and the lower person from the lower bracket. Those are the persons who keep the economy stirring if they can have money to spend. The small shops in the village, if you notice, a lot of the small shops are disappearing, except maybe you'll find a few bars that sell a lot of alcohol and those other things that are happening. So it's very important. In terms of the education system, let me just touch on it for the last point. The structure of the education system needs some intervention. I remember, for example, I don't want to say, okay, let's go back to the past, but the past, you take what is good from the past and you add to it for the future. When you reach common entrance age, it used to be common entrance, not CPE at the time, and you are not able to make it, there was another program for you automatically that you do as you go from to the grade 3, I think was senior 3 had at the time. You have 3 other classes and then you can re-enter secondary school. You can re-enter secondary school. So during those 3 years, you could have done a different program was set up for you. I used to be carrying some students also to attend the program that used to be in Bible, where they can do technical drawing, woodwork, and other things, other skills that if they pass at they can enter the school, whether any secondary school between Form 1 or 2, thereabout, right? Mm-hmm. So the structure need really to look at, because what happened, the one-size-fits-all universal secondary education is not working for everybody. It looks glamorous. Parents can boast, and I know the politician can ride on that, that yes. Parents' ignorance, let me put it that way. Right. To say, okay, everybody going to secondary school, and that is good. But at the end, when you reach Form 3, more than half of those are dropped out and you don't have any program for them. And that can be a problem. And even up more up the ladder. So there's need for those structures to cushion the effect.
Right. Vincent, I don't want to cut you, but there's other people that want to ask questions that were a little bit on timeline, but I'm with you. And I think we all agree with you on the fact that there needs to be,
I think that's about it.
Yes, but we're really sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want to be the bad guy here. I don't be the bad lady. I don't want to be the bad lady.
One more point, and it has, I touched on it already, and that has to be the post-secondary school,
right.
Post common entrance, I think I mentioned it already. The post CPEA program for students. I think that is about it I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vincent. We appreciate you so much. And sorry that I have to, sort of have everybody on a time. So I'll bring in the other, thank you so much, Vincent. And I'll bring in the other, I think we have here Jeannie Oliver. I will allow her to come in now and give her.
Jeannie.
Jeannie, you can unmute yourself. And,
yes, good evening, everyone. Andrew, I to go back a little. In our day, when we had groups functioning,
yes,
that is our basic problem in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The National Youth Council.
In order for us to be able to address our social issues, to address the issues impacting our youths, Nyla, we have to have functioning groups in our communities, the youths, the women, the community, the sporting, the cultural, and so on, so that they can come together and speak to the issues that are impacting them. I am not going to say anymore. Without those groups, we cannot sit in our offices because we are officers and we have our masters and our doctorate and decide what the youths and the community and so on need. We need in order to address our social issues. Andrew, we used to be coming from Chateau.
All our nights.
And from Fancy, all hours in the night. With
Pick up some fish on the way too. From Chateau.
We need to go back there, Nyla. I don't care what anybody says. We have to get the people dialoguing with each other, addressing their issues, and then we take it from there. Let them tell us what it is they need. We don't sit in our offices and decide what they need. I thank you very much. Very good program. Thank you.
Jeannie, thank you so much. Jeannie is always, sometimes she'll call me once in a while and say, hey, Nyla, don't stop. Sometimes I want to give up. But Jeannie, thank you so much. There's one thing that I would... Yes, go ahead, Charles.
Yes, one other point I wanted to mention quickly. The government has implemented this policy where you have, whether sports, I don't know what the group is called, but they control all the parks within St. Vincent. And what they have done is remove the use of the park from the local people. And I think that also contributes to our crime situation, because if we have young people playing and having sports within the community, they're less likely to you're less likely to want to kill somebody who you play football with every
especially
week.
At nights too.
You understand?
Yeah.
So when we take away these facilities that bring camaraderie and community
friendship,
unity, what we're gonna have is kids stay home, they play video game, they're playing games that are killing every day, they're shooting and killing every day. And they don't have this camaraderie. So when somebody in the community offends you, the first thing you want to do is shoot them as you would in the video game. So we have to be mindful of that, and we need to start to promote community sports. And it's good for a national product, because if we could be able to spot our talents and foster these talents, and maybe we do better when it comes to Olympics or CARICOM games or whatever.
Yes. I agree fully. Jeannie, you make a really valid point, and I smiled actually when you made it, that we need to come out of our offices. And one of the things that I would like to say is, I always lean to my father for advice, because he's older than me, but he always says, you guys are the next generation. You are the young people. You guys need to also lead. And there has to be this collaborative effort from the older generation along with the younger generation, so that we can bring true change to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes. So I think we have, Jeannie, we really appreciate you, your question. And I think we're having some questions coming via Facebook. So Jeannie, thank you so much. And I'll put you back on listening mode, okay? So we have a question here from Alban Bowman. Andrew, what is the cause of all the problems that is happening above the Rabaca Dry River? All these rivers opening. I worked over the river for 3 years, and I have never seen this until the Rabaca Bridge was built. What was done in the mountain when the bridge was built?
Well, I'm not too sure. In terms of, but what I can say, one of the, and I'm speaking about the year, it was 2013 when we have this storm. It wasn't a storm as such, but all this flooding in Vermont and across the country. St. Vincent is a funny place. We have quite a lot of underground streams. And Rabaca Dry River is a good one. I remember one year I was going, a day I was driving, going up to Uwea. Similar mission to what Jeannie spoke about, was going up there to walk. And I saw vehicles on both sides, but I didn't pay much attention until when I drove midway inside the river and the vehicles start to move down to going down to the sea. That's the time that I realized that the river came down. But I spoke to myself, I said, don't panic, Auntie, don't panic, Auntie, don't panic. And I got out. So throughout St. Vincent, there are quite a, because of the mountainous structure of the country, quite a lot of streams or rivers are running underground. So we may go to an area and you may see this place kind of dry and very dry, and what may happen, people, they go to that place, they build their houses. It happened in Spring Village, it happened in a number of areas, and then some years after, the river came back, the city river came back, and then it washed away the place, but the river the river was still there. You know, the old riverbeds, they're still there, the river's still flowing, and not at the pace, but anytime there's some blockage down there, it would come up on the surface. So we have to be careful. And one of the things that what I did, I developed what you call, when I was doing my PhD, climate risk mapping exercise. And so I was able to, across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I haven't fully finished as yet, but put these areas on GIS maps. So we created about 6 different layers for each of these communities, working with the guys from the physical planning division in government. And because we did it through what you call a participatory type of approach, where we have people who are in their 80s and people in their 15. So we were able to, those things that you talk about, Nyla, you know, bridge the generation gap. And it was such an interesting exercise. And then we got the people, so the discussions and so on, and then we got them to stick colors in terms of what, where, and we digitize them. And it's interesting that very soon that I have a small group of guys, well, ladies, that men, we should be going to Dominica maybe by next month, by November, and then to Guyana to do similar type of work in terms of risk mapping exercises and that so on. So maybe within the next few years, we'll be taking it across the Caribbean. Yeah, so that is the main problem that we have in St. Vincent in terms of the reappearance. So there may be a little bit of rain coming in the hills, you may not see it, and then right in where you build your house, and it's happening up at Sandy Bay. It happened right across from the dry river, right up, where there are quite a lot of reappearance. So those rivers, those streams that are underground, some blockage take place down there, and then they reappear. It happened in Vermont and across Rosebank and across the country because of the nature of the type of rocks that we have. Yeah, very porous, volcanic in terms of nature. And that's the reason why, remember earlier I raised the point that what happened on Richmond was some old lava flow. It's not stone, because water and anything can flow through that. So that's why they opened the quarry. So that is all over the country, and north of the dry river is, you know, an excellent example. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alban. I hope that answered your question from Dr. Andrew Simmons there. Someone is asking, Andrew, how can I get in contact with you? So I don't know if your number is to the public. Mine is. Everybody has it, but I don't know if you. But maybe I can send a message to them privately if you would like for me to give them.
No, you can give them my number.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm ready and willing, once I have the time, if you want me to come and speak to your church, to your community, because we have to give back. You know, other than that, would be, you know, I know Jeannie, we're doing some work and quite busy. This is the time for us to retire, Jeannie, but we can't retire because the country is in a rock and between a rock and a hard place, and we have to do everything to pull it out. I'm planning some programs for you though. Yeah, you just better you tell me when you're coming. And
no problem.
And we deal with that. I sent something to you about 2 hours ago before we start. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look.
On WhatsApp. Yeah.
Okay, it looks like he actually wants to talk with you. So it's D. Osmond. He's raised his hand here, so I'm going to let him in. Just give me a quick
Okay.
second here.
Yeah, and we could
Let me.
continue the
Yeah.
discussion after.
Yes, let us
Yeah.
continue. Yes, he's. Let me just get him in here. Okay, let me allow him to talk now. Go ahead, Osmond. Hello. I think
mute.
he's. Let me ask to unmute him. Just a second. I'm trying to ask to unmute, but I'm not. You need to unmute your speaker. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, hi, good night. I'm not a he.
Oh, sorry. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. We couldn't see the first name, so I just made this
Okay.
assumption. Yes.
Okay,
Welcome
that's
to
okay.
the conversation.
Thank you. It's a bit depressing but so informative at the same time, and it's so great to be here tonight. I thank you guys so much for what you're doing. I am from St. Vincent. I am from countryside. I am from AKA Carib country. And so this is
Okay.
very painful as in a way listening to all of this. Experienced the volcano and all that came with that while I was home. So for Mr. Simmons, and that's one of the reasons, Mr. Simmons, how do we go from here? What do we do to improve our country?
Well, for me, I thought that the government had an excellent opportunity and, you know, let it slip. I was expecting that and I'm speaking just after the hurricane, not the hurricane, the volcanic eruptions, that government would use the contact at the United Nations, because the UN, they were mobilizing money for the government to start to buy land and lower down, not, you know, trying to give your colleagues, take land from them so that you can give them back something, you know, and allow. I was looking at taking people out of the zone itself. So, because that was one of the things that they were looking at. So what I thought they would have done, using the volcano money from that they mobilized at the UN to start to buy up chunks of land and start to move people out, and then declare people would still go there to do, but that it would be a farming area, you know. But I heard the government say that the people said that, oh, they didn't want to move, which was for me a big lie, because in November, I did a workshop with 52 households in Sandy Bay. And what came out of that the people themselves said that they were expecting that, you know. So the government is because the suffering would blow again. Let we hope it's not very soon, and the same problems would happen. Now you have that whole problem with the flooding and a little bit of rain inside the mountains, and then in the communities, because they are the foothills of these mountains, they would experience the harsh backlash. And then what would happen? Then the sea would come in. So you're getting it from the sea coming and taking up all your land, flooding, you know, cutting out, destroying the buildings, destroying the communities, destroying the roads, and then you get it from the other side. So the people are literally between a rock and a hard place. The rock, the mountains, and all the flooding that comes from that area, and then the sea coming in terms of the climate change, sucking out, clearing the area. I believe that between Santosi right up to about Ovia, that we lost about 10% of St. Vincent. If you have somebody do the measurement, about 10% of St. Vincent, and down on the leeward side, I think about 10%. St. Vincent, between 30 years ago to now, is about 10%, 6 to 10% much smaller than what it was. And then the southeastern part, which is from Bayabo right down to Brighton, Salpon, Calacock, that area would start because you move that sand barrier. And that's the reason why I said that it's a criminal act, it's wickedness by this government. And I hope that they would take some time to repent to the people and say, look, we have done something that is wrong.
But then,
so that's on the,
so Dr. Simmons,
that
so
part of
where
it,
you
yeah.
propose this land would be, because learning from hearing what you were saying tonight, is that
Yes.
most of those lands are being sold out to foreigners. So where are we supposed to go?
That's a serious problem. And I think Samson raised the thing where quite a lot of, some of these areas that government should buy are already owned by foreigners. Some lovely lands and he lists some of those those areas, back of Richmond Park and those places are being owned by people from Mustique and so, but the thing again, government is government. Government has ways where they can take this land, because if you need land for development, you don't have to go, because they do that with local people. Let's see whether they would do it with lands that are being owned by foreign companies or foreign establishment. But government, if a government want a piece of land and they can justify for building a school, for building some to do something, they did that in Enams. Took land from family. There's this area in Kingston where the land was, there's some slippage and people houses get destroyed. They took the land from the
even
family.
With Dr. Murray.
Even
with Dr. Murray.
Yeah. So government can deal with it, whether this government, whether next government or what. But some government, and it shows that ULP government, because I really thought that they would have taken the opportunity. They were in a situation where they could have received a sizable amount of money, and now with some new changes that you can get something like that, because these are not just volcanic thing, but you can link these to climate change. And so government can mobilize, if they're not lazy, they can mobilize quite a lot, millions of climate money to deal with these issues, because these are fundamental issues. There are no control when the last affair will go into Europe and who you going to affect, So thank you very much. And you have my number, so we can talk. We can have
I haven't yet, but I hope to. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, guests, thank you so much for being a part of this. There's just a comment here that I would like to make. It's made by Rashida. It's a young lady who lives in the Union Island area, and she said, adding to what Jeannie Oliver said, I don't think, but over the years, the government has lost touch with the people. The periodic visits to certain parts in St. Vincent, especially in that of the Grenadines, to hold meaningful gatherings with people, except around campaign time, where it is a listen all, hear none kind of thing. All that caused voice of the people to drown over time. They need to hold town hall meetings and community meetings and listen to the people who live in the communities. These folks know what programs are needed to improve their communities and also their livelihood. How can you determine by sitting in your office ever so often? And so I think one of the things that I've realized in this entire discussion is people need to understand their power. And it's time that Vincentians stop sitting back and allowing a few to take the reins. You hold the power, not by just voting, but you hold the power. For 5 years, the government's in power, you need to hold them accountable. You and you alone, the citizens of the nation need to hold the government accountable, from climate change to the crime situation, unemployment, the nepotism, the corruption, and so forth and so on. And so it's time that, you know, hold them accountable. Ask them, why are all these investors coming into the country, right? Why are they getting duty-free concession? Why are we not promoting, you know, Vincent came on the call and he spoke about entrepreneurship. This is very, very important. When you have entrepreneurs, they fall into the middle class, and they're the ones that will help to develop your country. They're the ones that can afford to send their children to school, and that existed. I lived in St. Vincent under James Mitchell. I did not live under this administration, and I saw it was flourishing, and you'd see the people with the banana trucks heading down, and I mean, I used to love it. You know, it was just phenomenal. But now you have a country that is stagnant. We have Troy, who's talked about, you know, North Leawood is a graveyard, right? Wow. This is a young 33-year-old man who has spoken of his constituency in that perspective, that it's a graveyard. There's nothing there. And now you bring a quarry, it's just destroyed it. So anyways, I think we're going to, I don't know if there's no more questions. So I think maybe we should just wrap up. We're nearly moving to 9 o'clock. So we've been here for a couple hours, and I know Mr. Sampson, he's in England and he's bared his weight here. And so Charles, how about you say your last words, and then I'll pass it to Troy and then Andrew, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Nyla. Well, as we've discussed there, we do know that there are various issues that are affecting St. Vincent and our people, but none of them are, I think, are beyond the realm of us as a people tackling them and bringing St. Vincent back to where it used to be, a place which was known for its peaceful, tranquil people. St. Vincent was known for loving, friendly society, and we were also at one point the breadbasket of the West Indies or the Caribbean, the gem of the Antilles, we were referred to as. And all this have been eroded over the last 20 years or so. We're no longer the gem. We've lost our potential to be the breadbasket of the Caribbean. And basically, too much of our young people are unemployed and really don't see a future. And we have to change this. How do we go about changing this? Because we do have an educated, a more educated society. So what's the problem? We're spending vast amount of money to educate our young people, to then send them off to places like England and America and Canada to build these first world country, while St. Vincent remain in a stagnant, underdeveloped place. We've moved from a country that had traffic lights now to a point where police are back on the street in hot sun directing traffic. We've retrogressed, and we very soon will be celebrating 44 years of independence. But are we independent, or are we really dependent? Because none of the systems that govern us as a society we have built upon. The grammar school and the girls' high school are colonial relics, and they're still seen as the top schools. Our police are still wearing uniforms that were handed down in colonial time. That is not adequate. St. Vincent is getting hotter, but we have police standing up in these thick gray tunics and wherever, directing traffic, dying.
How about the nurses,
policing,
Charles? Do you see how the nurses dress? That's not practical.
Exactly. Policing have not advanced. So we have come to a point where the criminals have advanced in their way of committing crime. And because policing have not advanced, the police can't solve crimes. Healthcare is abysmal. Simple operation could end up in a mortuary. All these are failure on the part of our government. And for me, it's always a sign when you see the government doesn't feel confident enough in using the healthcare system. The least a government should do is at least have a good healthcare system. You've been there for 20 odd years. So you really have no one to blame but yourselves. It's enough time you had to really turn things around. And all that we can see is that as I said, I am very much scared of economic recolonization that is taking place, where all of our prime lands are being sold off to foreigners, and we are really being left to servitude. We could only get the lower end job, and this is marketed as opportunities. Why don't we, instead of going jobs, 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 as was one of the campaign slogans, why don't we teach our young people to own business, entrepreneurship, invest, teach them about stock market, how to invest, how to make money? No, it's no longer the days when you could only make money by tilling the soil or by driving a truck, or you can literally sit in your home behind a computer and make money. Why aren't we teaching our children about trading and investments and these kind of things, rather than working for a handout, really? Job. Oh, Sandals is going to employ this and Sandals is going to employ that. No. Vincentians have got to take pride in themselves. We've got to own our country's resources rather than have rainforest take or sea resources and the Taiwanese. And then when it comes to agriculture, we have Renault taking what is produced on land. So we've lost what is produced at sea. We've lost what is produced on land. And when it comes to tourism again, we're losing our prime lands. As Vincentians, we don't own anything.
I agree, Charles.
How many Vincentians have lost their businesses under this administration? Bigger Bigs being one of them. It's time for us to really take back St. Vincent. Give our young people the hope that if they go and they study, that they be able to achieve and become great. But when you're seeing that those who were once considered to be great in our society are crumbling around you, what sort of courage does that give you to stick around in St. Vincent? You're always gonna think, oh, the pasture is green on the other side, so we've got to leave. And our country cannot develop without our young people. And majority of our young people, when they go to study, they either stay there or they're leaving to look, we're at a point where the world is ever so close to World War III. But yet our young people think that it is safe for them to come to England to join the British military or go to America to join the military. When a war could kick off at any time, a nuclear war, that could see them losing their lives. But even that is better than staying in St. Vincent, because in St. Vincent there's no hope, absolutely no hope. And we have got to change that. Our politicians have got to change that and give all young people something to live for. If we own a part of St. Vincent, it's national pride, we would then want to build St. Vincent. But if you can't even buy land, if you can't even own a home in your country, how could you then claim to be a Vincentian? When a foreigner could come and own vast amounts of lands, and you as a Vincentian can't even own 1 square foot of your country. It's a shame on the government. It's a shame on their policies. It is time for us to empower young people. Let them own lands, let them own houses, let them own businesses, let them enjoy the gem of the Antilles and be happy to be Vincentians.
Thank you so much, Charles. And I'll just piggyback on that. You know, you speak of ownership and, you know, that St. Vincent seems to be being colonized again. I mean, if we look at sub-Sahara, you know, in the African continent, where they're saying no more, the military is taking over. And I'm proud to be an African. My mother is Ugandan, so I'm a very, very proud Ugandan Vincentian Canadian. And I'm so proud of my African people, because they've said they've had enough. They've had enough of that, you know, that sort of colonization where you see Africa has so much resources, gold and diamond and all the minerals and oil. And then the people.
And the same thing is happening in St. Vincent.
Right. So we have to start, Vincentians, you have to wake up. You have to wake up and you have to take a hold of your country. There is a very vast amount of young people in that country. It is time that you start understanding what is happening in your country. And remember, you know, some people say, oh, I don't get involved in politics. You must. Everything that governs you is politics. Yes. And that notion needs to be removed. We need to start educating our people, and you need to start standing up to the government and saying, listen, we have had enough. It is time. If that means you got to hit the streets again, hit the streets. Let the government, look at the world right now. People are upset. They're hitting the streets. They're telling their government. Africa's telling their government, they're taking over and they're saying, we will not tolerate this anymore. And
It's time for the police
tensions
to
together.
stand on the side of the people as well, because what
That's
we see in
correct.
Africa is that the military is standing on the side of the people
That's
and liberating
right.
their country. But unless
That's right.
the police decides to stand on the side of the people, which they're sworn to protect, rather than protect politicians against the people who employ them, we can't get true freedom.
That's correct. So police officers, some of you of my friend, please do not abuse the protesters. You're supposed to stand with them, as my counterpart Charles says. Stand with your people. Africa, the African military has stand with their people. It is time that you get up and stand. According to Andrew Simmons here, you were going to be losing our land. Right? Climate change, we have nepotism, we have unemployment. You guys have broken the record on murder. You know, there's no citizen security. I mean, there's so many things that Vincentians could protest about and tell the government we have had enough. But anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Troy now, and then Andrew, and we're going to close this out, or so we can be here all night. So Troy,
Yes.
you would like to say your closing remarks?
I think that we are all going to end on the same note of hope and change, you know, because, I mean, what else could we really ask for a better St.Vincent and the Grenadines? And I just want to piggyback on a point that you made about citizens understanding how government ought to function. I just want to remind Vincentians that the government, they have been employed by us. We put them there to serve, you know, and we need to act as if we are the employers and they are our employees. But instead, the ULP, they have been able to spin that around, and even though we put them there to serve, we still are serving them. So that is one thing that we have to try and change, you know. And the whole narrative that is being spread by the ULP, it's a propaganda machine that it has done its works. And I say that they are very successful at the propaganda that they have been spreading to Vincentians, the police force. You know, they have brainwashed so many of their supporters that I am not sure how we are going to be able to take St. Vincent and the Grenadines back from the ULP. But if Vincentians really do want to see a better St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have to at least make the change. You know, I mean, they have been in government, over 2 decades? We have seen the country gone from bad to worse. We have seen crimes, record-breaking crime situation, record-breaking unemployment levels. Are we going to give them another 22, 23 years to fix what they have done to us? Are we going to get up and say, we are fed up, you have destroyed us, and we want a difference in our country? You understand? You can have a party in power for over 2 decades, and then they are going to come and tell you about restoration of hope and campaign and such stupid slogans like that. What happened to our hope in the first place in the last 2 decades, where you should see it fit now to come and restore it? You understand? So if they themselves are seeing the problems and they are bringing it to you, they created these problems for us, and now they are campaigning about fixing these problems. Are we going to allow them to really ride us like political donkeys again and take us into our next 5, 10 years of this hardship? If Vincentians can't wake up and smell the coffee, then it's on them. But I can't wait to see what the next 5 years is going to be like for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But I just wish the best for my country. That's all I'm gonna say.
Troy, thank you so much. Thank you for your input there. Dr. Andrew Simmons. So we left the best for last.
Thank you very much. I think I just want to echo,
great.
I think Troy and Samso and you yourself, you know, it's just, I just want to echo to people, you know, just be the change, you know, be the change when it comes to housing. And I heard there was some discussion some time ago by the PM saying that, oh, the last government didn't build any houses. Vincentians are accustomed to build their own houses. We don't want people to build boxes and plywood things. We are accustomed to build, take the community, organize the community, go from one house to the next and build the houses themselves, nice, lovely houses that people can live in, you know, their children can live in, you know, not something that when the next hurricane comes, you have to be careful, wondering, would this thing be blown down? Would, you know, what would happen to me? What would happen to my family? So I think I just want to encourage people, you know, we have to just to be the change, to be whatsoever you can think of that you want for your life. Work with your communities, get the people from the villages where you live, start to organize, you know, a few houses and start to organize yourself. And, you know, so that any government that you put in office, that you have to be the ones who in control, not the people because they become they been elected, that they're doctors, they're nurses, they're economists, they're everything. No, we have to, you know, take back this country, because this is our country. So I just want to just send out that kind of encouragement, because whosoever these people are being elected, they're your servants. You know, you're not their servants, they're your servants. They're there to serve you. And so, you know, we have to work as a team and pull back this country. We have to take back this country, because this is our country. Thank you very much, Naila and team.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew Simmons. Thank you so much for being on this program. I hope this will be not your last time that you join us.
No.
And Charles, you know, Charles is always here with me as vice president, and Troy, we're very thankful to have you as part of this panel. And thanks to all our guests tonight. Thank you so much for your questions and for taking the time to be with us for the last 2.5 hours. And I just want to leave this with Vincentians. Your independence is coming. Be truly independent. Understand what it means to be independent. Rise up, stand up, and demand better. Happy Independence, Vincentians. You guys have a great night.
Wow, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Inspiring.